What if the darkness made a festive Viennese waltz? Find out on this week's Christmas special What If, How, When, Why. Hello, my name is Morgan Brown, and for the past few months I've been making a series of music videos that are called What If videos. The idea of these is that each week I take a different popular song and imagine an alternative universe in which a decision that someone's made or a different set of circumstances cause that song to come out completely different from the version we know and love. I then take the original lead vocal of that song and record a new backing track to it using just GarageBand and whatever instruments I have to hand in order to bring this alternative version to life. So this week the song I chose was Christmas Time, Don't Let the Bells End by The Darkness, and I tried to reimagine that as if The Darkness had collaborated with Rieu to create a festive Viennese waltz version of the song. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, here's a little taster.
On the 25th day of the 12th month, the same as a long time, ringing true. How we cling to the roads, that's the fake smoke in hell, but it will end. Don't let the bells end, Christmas time, just let the
It's funny, when The Darkness first started having hits, I wasn't a fan at all, I must admit. At the time I worked in a job where we had Radio 1 playing all the time. It was just on constantly from sort of 9 to 5 every day. And when that first Darkness album came out, they had a string of hit singles from it. I Believe in a Thing Called Love, Get Your Hands Off My Woman, Growing on Me, all those, and they were just, you'd hear those songs sort of 4 or 5 times a day, and I was not keen at all. I think initially a lot of my problem was that as someone who'd been a rock fan from childhood, the way they presented themselves was always quite jokey, like tongue-in-cheek to the point of kind of parody. And although I think it's healthy for rock fans to have an awareness of the ridiculous side of those 70s and 80s rock and roll cliches, there's part of me that still wants the people playing that music to be taking it very seriously, or at least give the impression of taking it pretty seriously. It's okay for people to have fun with it, but I didn't want to feel like the people who are performing this music are actively taking the piss out of it. I think initially I did sort of get the impression that that's what The Darkness were doing. But more than that, my main problem was a lot of the fans that they attracted. When they started having these hit records, all of a sudden lots of people who would never have given any kind of rock and roll record the time of day were suddenly massive fans of The Darkness, and a lot of them seem to be just ironically into rock music as a result of The Darkness. So just that kind of, it's so bad, it's good, it's so stupid, it's good kind of appreciation, which I've never really enjoyed. It was very much the era of people ironically appreciating music. I guess the rise of like the whole idea of guilty pleasures, club nights and compilations and things. I've always been quite against the idea of a guilty pleasure in music. I kind of think you either like something or you don't. Don't be ironic about it, just enjoy it or don't. So that definitely tainted my impression of The Darkness. And I was quite glad at the time when, after the second album didn't do quite so well, they faded from view and I guess split up for a time. Obviously in the years since then they've reformed, they've gone back to releasing records, they've kept touring, and I must admit my opinion of them has mellowed considerably, partly because they've definitely long since outlived novelty status. They're clearly not just joking, however tongue-in-cheek they remain, however much fun they're obviously having with the genre they're working in. They consistently come up with these fun anthemic rock songs and they just keep plugging away at it. They can really play. Justin Hawkins, obviously, he's quite a presence, he's got a remarkable voice. Him and his brother can both shred as well. And he's quite a fun personality as well. Obviously, I've seen some of his YouTube stuff. Enjoyed him appearing at the Taylor Hawkins tribute, singing Van Halen songs with Wolf Van Halen as well. That was great. So Now, actually, looking back, was I too harsh on them? I think I definitely was. And now, with the benefit of 20 years of perspective, they just seem like a fun rock band rather than an annoying parody. And while there definitely were loads of annoying people who latched onto them and just treated them as novelty, those people have fallen by the wayside. And in the meantime, a lot of the people who did get into that band back in the 2000s have continued to be rock fans. They must have been a real gateway to rock music for so many people, because there was nothing that sounded like that at the time. So hats off to them. I was wrong. And I must admit, every time Christmas comes around, while you get your perennial Mariah Carey appearance, Wham and Slade, Wizard, all these festive hits that come around every year, it's always quite nice to hear the Darkness one roll around too. It's catchy and it's fun and it rocks, and it's a nice addition to that canon of evergreen Christmas hits that you end up hearing 100 times every year. And another artist that crops up every Christmas in quite a different musical genre is Rieu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I probably am not. I must admit, I don't know a massive amount about him. He's obviously been quite a big deal for decades now, but I wasn't really aware of his existence until my Virgin TV package got updated and I suddenly had Sky Arts, which, has some quite fun stuff on. But then I quite soon discovered that every few weeks they'll give over an entire Sunday to performances by Andre Rieu and his Johann Strauss Orchestra. And I was just flabbergasted. Who the hell is this guy? Why is he worthy of taking over an entire TV channel? But yeah, quickly realised that he's absolutely massive. And then since seeing that, it's cropped up everywhere. And I've noticed that every Christmas his Christmas concerts appear in cinemas all over the place. Obviously just like a massive industry in a way that most classical music couldn't hope to be. I mean, it's a pretty marginal form in many respects now. So it was quite bizarre to see someone playing music that's hundreds of years old with an orchestra having this massive mainstream success. I guess the appeal of it is that it makes people feel like they are being, to some extent, cultured and intellectual, but at the same time, it's actually pretty much middle of the road, totally unchallenging, comforting entertainment. It's very middlebrow, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, me calling someone middlebrow, if that's middlebrow, I'm extremely lowbrow. I don't know anything about classical music, really. I did A-level music 100 years ago, approximately, but I've forgotten more than I ever knew, to be honest. But what I mean is, some people who get seriously into orchestral music, they're looking for sort of a real intellectual challenge. What Andre is doing is not providing that. What he's doing is, it's more akin to what you'd get from reading a romance novel, watching Bridgerton or whatever. It's providing a bit of a rose-tinted, warming, comforting gateway into a romanticized, idealized past, I guess. So light, toe-tapping, easily memorable, sweet melodies, generally presented in these beautiful sets. It always selects these extremely picturesque old world concert halls for these events. Everyone's decked out in elaborate, glamorous, oldie world kind of costumes and finery. It's all very grand and very romantic. It's a real escapist entertainment experience, but one that, because it's classical music, it also allows people to feel like, oh, well, I'm getting some culture as well. It's not like you're studying Schoenberg or something. It's more closely akin to, say, what Liberace was doing. But yeah, whatever it is, I'm not casting any aspersions on it. It's wildly popular for a reason. People like that music still, and they like seeing it presented in these beautiful locations by an orchestra who are decked out to look like this epitome of old world style. And I'm sure to some extent Andre himself must be a bit of a heartthrob to fans of a certain age, with his flowing locks and his very expressive eyebrows. So there's probably a bit of that going on too. But yeah, it's an interesting cultural phenomenon. As I say, don't know a massive amount about it, but it certainly just piqued my interest seeing these orchestral concerts becoming such a sort of massive draw. For this week's alternative universe scenario, my thought was, since reforming, the Darkness have been touring pretty hard, and they're not getting any younger. I don't mean that in a bad way, neither am I. I've been playing in bands for years, and I used to tour quite a lot myself, but these days I haven't done more than about 4 or 5 gigs in a row for a long time, and that nearly kills me. So the schedule are keeping up now. Maybe I figure in this alternative universe, starting to get a bit tiring. They're a little bit weary of life on the road and the schedule of recording and then going out to plug the album again, looking for a way to kind of break out of that. And Justin pops to the cinema just looking for just something to distract him, to ease his troubles. Sees that there's this concert by Andre Rieu on, isn't really familiar with what he does, but goes in to watch it and kind of captivated by the pomp and circumstance of this performance. Really likes the way this old world music is portrayed with all this drama and pageantry, which he sees as a bit of a parallel to the way the Darkness revitalized kind of 70s and 80s rock with a new drama and pageantry as well. So reaches out to see if Mr. Rieu would like to collaborate, and obviously Andre Rieu, I assume he's a pretty commercially savvy guy, so he sees this as a way to expand his audience. So they get together and work up a full orchestral arrangement of Christmas Time Don't Let the Bells End to be featured in the latest series of Christmas concerts by the Johann Strauss Orchestra. And as a result, obviously, that massively expands both audiences. And this enables the Darkness to just become a venerable part of this Christmas concert tradition and ease back on the rock and roll tour in life. Yeah, so I figured I'd try and create an orchestral arrangement that sounded a little bit like my limited knowledge of Andre Rieu's work suggests his version might sound like. So I took Justin's original vocal and also the choral vocals from the end of the original Darkness record, synced them up to the grid in GarageBand. The first thing I did was slow the overall tempo down because the original song's in 6/8 time. I wanted to give it more of a 3/4 feel for obviously a Viennese waltz. And then I just started trying to layer up the orchestra. I'm using, as ever, Spitfire Audio's BBC SO Discovery Pack, which is a free plugin of samples of the BBC Symphony Orchestra. Dead good. I know very little about creating orchestral arrangements. I'm just winging it really, but just tried to plan out how I wanted the dynamics of it to sound, which sections I want to feature in which section of the song, and then just work from there, trying things out, seeing what works. So first verse, I just break everything down to just strings. Obviously, more instruments coming in for the chorus, and then out of the chorus, on the original record, there's a section with the chords changing over a constant low pedal note, and I like that tension building technique, so kept that in, and I've got some marching band drums coming in, which just kind of helps with that sort of feeling of building tension. That breaks into the second verse where I start to really feature the woodwinds. So I've got the chords being carried by the clarinet and the oboe, and then the flutes and piccolos just quoting some little bits of well-known Christmas favourites as a little Easter egg there as well, which I thought might be quite a nice little touch. I was quite keen to give the bassoon a good part as well, because I don't think I've mentioned before, but when I was in school, that was my classical instrument that I played. That was what I played in the school orchestra. I was never very good at it, but I always enjoyed that. So since then, I've always liked to hear anything that has a good bassoon part on. In the middle eight section, I gave the bassoon a little counter melody, doubled that with a glockenspiel just for a bit of sparkly magic, because it's Christmas and everyone needs a little bit of sparkly magic at Christmas. So I try and keep a bit of dynamic ebb and flow whilst overall building to make it more dramatic towards the end. Gradually build in extra elements. There's more percussion coming in with timpani. And then as we get into that final big out chorus, I bring in the actual bells, tubular bells, which I've got peeling away in a sort of implied kind of 4 time over the 3. As well as the dynamic ebb and flow, I wanted to give a little bit of tempo ebb and flow to feel like it was an actual orchestra following a conductor. So it tends to slow down a little bit in the verses, pick up a bit in the choruses. And then as it gets towards the end, the excitement kind of builds and the tempo just kind of ramps up and up until we're going at quite a clip towards the very end of the track there. For the video, obviously found some footage of the band playing the song on a TV show, which I've intercut with some footage of the Johann Strauss Orchestra, which I quite liked just because it was certainly in the right time signature, about the right tempo. It's got some good Andre eyebrow action there, and also some great shots of the crowd frantically swaying away as well. So cut that in there as well, just to get a bit of that vibe. And I think it all kind of fits in reasonably well there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. That was the first of my Christmas videos. I've got another one coming up next week in a very different style. So if you didn't enjoy this one, hopefully next week's will float your boat. If there's anything non-Christmassy that you'd like me to try out in the new year, any songs you'd like me to take a look at, any artists you'd like me to take a look at, or any styles you'd like me to try my hand at, please do let me know down in the comments. I always appreciate your suggestions. Otherwise, that's it from me for this week. So as I say, another Christmas delight coming up next week, so watch out for that. And until then, see you next time.